Thank you so much for joining us today for our monthly presentation. We took August off, so we feel refreshed. Hopefully everybody had a great summer. It's not quite over yet. But the Circle of Life Coalition's mission is we envision an informed community open to honest conversations about life and death, one in which we inspire each other to live life fully while acknowledging the inevitability of death, and where choices for end-of-life care are effectively communicated, documented, respected, and honored. This is a safe space to ask any question that you want. We may not have the answers, but we certainly do want to hear your opinions. There will be a small poll near the end of the presentation. We encourage you to put your comments, suggestions, and questions in the chat box, and we will definitely get to those. Little housekeeping, please keep yourself on mute. We will survey for that. And if you don't want to be on video, I think I have most of us hiding our video, but definitely keep that in mind because we can see everything then when it's recorded. This is posted on YouTube after a minor editing, but we can't edit out people who might be, brushing their hair, putting on their mascara on their video. So among other things. So please keep that in mind. A little public service reminder, this is Suicide Prevention Month, September. Of course, every month is suicide prevention. But if you or anyone is suffering from sadness, depression, or not knowing what to do, please dial 988. And you will be directed to our local resources. It's the national number. If anyone wishes to sponsor presentations, you certainly can go to our website and submit that you would like to, or contact any one of us that you may know. I am so honored and pleased that we have today Kalpana Doshi. She will be speaking to us about guardianship, basics, what we need to know, what we want to know. She's a clinical social worker in Reading and graduated with honors in 1980. She has many, many years of diverse experiences in clinical social work and guardianship, and she's assisted families, medical groups, professionals throughout her career in helping to navigate the intricacies of that. So without further ado, Kal Doshi.
Hello, everyone. Like Deb said, my name is Cal, for short, Kalpana Doshi. I do have a master's in medical psychiatric social work, and I worked with children and youth concerned. I started with young children or little children, preschool children. That was my interest, but it has gone into adults and seniors. That has been for the last 15 to 20 years. So I have an agency called Adjustments, and we are Reading based, and I do guardianships in about 7 counties. That is Montgomery, Berks, Lancaster, York, Philadelphia, Chester, and Berks. So usually, I didn't know what guardianship was. I worked as a social worker with children, with the Office of Aging for about 20 years, and I always avoided guardianships or having to refer someone for guardianship because it was such a formidable word, and what all was needed, it was difficult. But before I go any further, if you have any questions, please stop and send them in. I don't mind being interrupted. If you wave your hand, that's fine. I am not an attorney, and a little small disclaimer, I'm sitting with an attorney here, so some of my facts, if you don't agree with, or I give some wrong information, please feel free to correct me. I am totally, it's such a vast topic, and I know so little about it, even after doing it for about 15 to 20 years. So please feel free, anything you can do to help me. If my voice is too loud or too soft, or I'm speaking too fast, please let me know. I tend to talk a little fast sometimes, and I do have an Indian accent, so forgive me. So coming back to Adjustments, I started this for case management and for counseling. That was for seniors under Medicare coverage. And then it gradually went into guardianships. I predominantly do guardianships right now. And before we go any further, what is guardianship? I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. It is a legal process. I'm going to read some of this language. It is a legal process used to give someone authority, like a substitute decision maker, to make decisions for caring for the person and finances. The person who is being asked to get guardianship, that is the ward, has to be an incapacitated individual. And what I mean by incapacitated, it used to be first termed as incompetent, which was not the right phrase. So now they have changed it to incapacitated. Is someone with a clinically diagnosed condition who is unable to make sound decisions for the self-care, welfare, or finances, who's susceptible to being exploited. And they are unable to receive and evaluate information or communicate their needs properly, and what their decisions are. So it is somebody who needs a little bit of hand-holding mentally or psychiatrically with any mental illness, or physically, like with a stroke, or is not able to make these decisions. This is a very involved, responsible decision, and it's not to be taken lightly. You have to go through court. The judge has to give an order to appoint a guardian for someone. So there is a whole process for that. But before we go to the process of guardianship, I wanted to go over that not everybody has to have a guardian or go through guardianship. There are some alternatives. Like, for instance, I'm a social worker. Somebody is not able to walk, is wheelchair bound, not able to go for appointments, not able to do things. They are not incompetent. They are competent. It's just physically they need help. So sometimes it is expensive and time consuming. So the alternatives would be to ask a family member to help them. Somebody even is having mental illness or schizophrenia, having ups and downs. They can still do without a guardian and have a family member assist them. I have people who the family member comes in on a daily basis or twice a week and does the bills for them, does the groceries for them, makes sure they're getting meals on wheels, keeps track of their appointments. Not necessary that you have to have a guardian in this case. You can go with a power of attorney. If the person is mentally aware enough to give power of attorney, you can give power of attorney, which is less expensive. Social agencies also can get involved, like Office of Aging, the waiver program, the options. So instead of going straight for guardianship, these are the things that you can become. You can also become a healthcare representative. You can get a paper signed, say, I am not a POA, but just a healthcare representative. So you can go with the family member to the doctor. People don't like guardians, family members or the wards themselves, because it means taking away a lot of their rights and decision making. So guardianship is not always, most of the time, not looked upon kindly. It's a very negative atmosphere. Also, one last thing, you can become a representative payee with Social Security or with pensions, so you can manage the bills for the person. If all these alternatives are not all right, then the family or the doctor or the attorney starts thinking about, or it could be anyone, a hospital or a nursing home can look into guardianships. So who can become a guardian? Anyone can be, if a person is qualified. By that is that you're able to read and write, able to manage finances, there is no felony in your record, you have not gone through bankruptcy, or there's no conflict of interest. Like, for instance, if the son is to inherit from the dad, he will not be appointed as a guardian, because his decision making in that point might interfere with his ability to place his dad in a nursing home if need be. Of course, there are exceptions. The judge will evaluate this, but general conflict of interest cannot be there. A power of attorney, if the patient or the ward is not cooperating with the power of attorney, then you can go for a guardianship, because power of attorney can be revoked, but guardianship is more difficult to do that. So a dad appoints his son as power of attorney, and they're not getting along. Dad could say, I'm not leaving you any money, and I'm going to revoke the power of attorney. If the father is not incapacitated, he can do that. If he's on the borderline, he can still do that. If he's starting to get more confused, then the son can go for a guardianship at that point. Now, how to start a guardianship? How do you start the process? I'm going to go walk you through with, for instance, the person is in the hospital and there is no one coming forward. Medical treatments have to be given to this person. Family is not involved, or there are 3 family members who don't agree with each other. One is saying, do the amputation. One is saying no, then there is a problem. Then the hospital can come forth as a petitioner and apply for guardianship to the court. The petition must include, should be first of all, very simple language, name, address of the ward, what the problems are, any family members, who the service providers are, what the limitations are, and why you are applying for this guardianship. And also, what have you done to find less restrictive measures? So for instance, if the petition is presented by the hospital before the judge is going to want to know all these things in the petition itself. They are going to want to know why the son or daughter who want to be a guardian are not suggested. So the judge thoroughly vets the petition. Then they appoint another attorney for a counsel for the patient and listens to the testimony of the doctors, psychologists, family members, Office of Aging, everything. And then the judge issues an order for a guardian. So this is the first step. Now, before also the petition is given to the court, and the attorney can help me out with this, is that 20 days before the petition has to be given to the ward, that this is what we are going to be doing, and explain to them why they're going to go through this. They may not understand it, they may be confused, but it still has to be given to the client and all the family members as well. Then the judge or the court sets a hearing date, and for the hearing, the client, that is the ward, the family members, the attorneys, both representing the petitioner as well as the patient, need to be there, and the proposed guardian. And then after everyone gives the testimony, the judge can decide, yes, we do need to go through with this guardianship, or no. You know, they will have the chance, everyone has a chance to put their story forward. They also, in the expert testimony that the petitioner brings, like in this case, if it's somebody from the hospital, the doctor will have to say what the limitation is, what kind of rehab potential there is this a short-term or a long-term disability, and also what other services are going to be there long term for this client. Is this reversible, this disability, or not? Then the the judge decides, yes, this will be given. And there are different kinds of guardianship. It could be an emergency guardian, guardian of person, guardian of estate, or of both, or also a limited guardian. So what that means is guardian of person means that the person, like for instance, if it is me, then I have to make sure that the person is taken care of physically, find a place for him to live. If it's a nursing home, do the applications, do medical assistance applications, go to the banks, get a guardianship account, talk to Social Security, get to be a rep payee so that you know where the money is coming, consolidate all the funds, get the mail directed to you so you know what bills are out there, and talk to the doctors before the discharge. So this is just the groundwork before actual guardianship work starts. I'm just seeing 1 second, please. Okay. Once and of the estate, the guardian of estate is, again, finances. All the bills need to be paid, life insurances, end of life plans, funeral plans, as well as opening accounts, closing accounts. If there is exploitation from a family member, making sure that those funds are gotten back. If there is a home as an asset, then we need to make sure that the home is cleaned and is put on the market and sold at a fair market value. Now, for the sale, the judge can put in restrictions for the guardian. For instance, the judge says you have to only spend from the income. If there are any assets, you come to me to the court and get approval for that. If the house has to be sold, come to the court, get approval, and then sell the house. So all these are in place to protect the incapacitated from the guardian and to protect the guardian from being misused. So if these are all filed, and it's an ongoing process, if a guardian is of person and estate, then they have to do both and be on call 24/7 for calls from the nursing home or the client. So the nursing home will call you with change in prescriptions, any new appointments, if they have how much they're eating of their meals, if there is a weight loss, is there's any altercations, any bruises, any falls, and doctor appointments, everything. So finances and person. In some cases, the judge decides, wait a minute, John has some capacity. He is able to take care of himself, so it's limited. You will only be the guardian of paying his bills and making sure he has a place to live, but you have to involve him in all decision making. That's limited. I will tell you, that's not the best. It's great for the incapacitated, but for the guardian, that's a nightmare because you have to work with someone who doesn't fully understand or comprehend. That's why the guardian is there, but it becomes very difficult to get work done which needs to be done at times. Now, if all these are satisfied and the judge says, yes, I'm satisfied that John is incapacitated and is a mess financially, there are bills galore and all the mortgages have not been paid, there's going to be foreclosure on the house, he's falling, he's lying in feces and urine, is incontinent, then we need to get a plenary guardianship in place. That is complete power of, guardianship power to the guardian to manage and make sure that the person is safe. You still have a responsibility to let the incapacitated person, keep him informed, keep family informed, make a budget and make sure that the budget is followed. Keep a detailed record of all the expenses which you have to show to the client and the family if they request. All of this is kept on file, and there is a yearly report that the guardian has to do. It's in the GTS, which is started Guardian Tracking System. So the report will state everything which I just said, any appointments, diagnosis, where they are placed, who are the doctors, what are the progress made, any hospitalizations, how much money is there now, what are you paying, etc. So that is the responsibility of a guardian. You keep track, you visit the person at least once a month, more if need be. You visit them in the hospital, you visit them in the nursing homes, or in their own homes, or in group or assisted homes, and be accessible 24/7. For that, you are compensated at $300 a month. If they have funds, you can get paid from $50 to $150, whatever the court approves in which county you are. If they have assets, you have to have a bond in place. Some judges will waive the bond for the guardian. And also, you have to send, in some counties, send a detailed invoice to the judge and get paid if it is approved, and to the family members. So this is basically the compensation. But I don't want to say that guardianships is not a good profession. I think the guardianship is rewarding. It helps people. And some of the guardians are liked by some of the people. I am not liked much by my people because they want to leave, and I don't have an alternative for them. Also, they want money. They want their income. They don't understand that that whole income goes to the nursing home, and they only get $45 out of it to spend if they're on Medicaid. So it's a seesaw. It's a lot of juggling acts, but obviously it has its rewards, and I've been doing it for long. So if anybody is thinking of becoming a guardian, please, contact us, contact your attorney, contact anyone. I mean, enough literature is there on Google, but I will share my phone number. They're free to call me. It is 610-468-2100. And that's my cell phone. And you can definitely call me. One second. I have a question. What would you advise if there may be a capacity question, but lots of family dynamics make them hesitate to pursue? What would you advise? Good question. Yes, what I would suggest is you can let them meet with the family, give them an alternative of going for a professional psychologist, or and there are psychologists who will do an evaluation of capacity. A family doctor can also do an evaluation, but they should be willing to testify in court. So I normally, when I work with Office of Aging, they would normally say, I know the person does not have capacity, but some family members feel they do. Then ask the family doctor, that's free. But you can get also a psychological in-depth evaluation from a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Normally they run, and they come to the patient's home. They normally run from $1,000 to $1,500. They're not cheap. If there is a capacity question and there is already a guardianship in place and they have no money, then the courts can order an independent medical evaluation, IME, and the courts will pay that to see if the person has regained capacity or they need a guardian. There are some people who will do this. They will come to the home, and usually the clients, the patients, the incapacitated person are very happy to do the evaluation because they want to prove everybody wrong that they have their mind intact. Now, I also wanted to warn you based on Deborah's question, there is various degrees of incapacity. The mini mental asks you 5 questions. Who's the president? What is the day? He's able to say that. Or they remember childhood things, long-term things. That does not make them capacitated. There is something called executive function, which is more involved. And that is where they are not able to process information and give the correct communicative answer or have the right emotion. I'll give you an example. I have a lady right now, she lives in outskirts of Philadelphia. She's a doctorate. She was a professor in one of the colleges. She taught for 30 years. She's in her late 70s, immaculately dressed, most pleasant person. The house is immaculate. I mean, if I go in there, I could eat off of the floors. But she was scammed with these scammers on the phone, and she gave them money, no executive function. She gave them $500,000. She is completely out of funds. So, and they're still calling her, but she doesn't want to change the phone because she thinks that she's still going to get money back from these guys. Now, mind you, this lady is falling victim to this, not because she wants money to go to the shore or go and gamble, but she wants to pay her bills. Her income is very high, but there is no savings left. So we've gone 3 times to court. The judge first said, and she was right with that. She first said it should be only of finances, not working. The lady calls me about 6 times a day, telling me that the bills are not paid, and she's making up stories now because the scammers are putting pressure on her. So now the house is going to be foreclosed. So there is in spite of talking to her, in spite of explaining, in spite of Office of Aging, in spite of family talking to her, police have been involved, doctors have talked to her, cannot accept that she's not going to get the money. So now we are going back again with an independent medical evaluation and saying we need a person and estate, and then place her, liquidate the house, and pay for her assisted living. So this can be some of the issues. Long-winded, Deborah, but I hope it met the answer. There are some restrictions for guardians. The guardian, under no circumstance, can sign somebody in a psychiatric facility. This is to safeguard the incapacitated person. They have to have either the delegate from mental health or the doctor or the nursing home calling 911, place somebody into a psychiatric facility. Yes, I can give an order, the consent to have somebody sent to the hospital, but I cannot interfere in psychiatric conditioning. The guardian also cannot do sterilization, consent to marriages or divorce, or relinquish parental rights if it's somebody younger and have children. I had a classic case of a lady. She lived with an alcoholic boyfriend who was 15 years younger than her, who was ripping her off and abused her physically and emotionally. But he had her convinced that it's her money and that she should be giving him, and she cannot manage on her own. This went on and on and on. So I got involved, and I the guardian put a stop to all her access to her money. So he convinced her to go to court and get a license to get married. They were living together as boyfriend and girlfriend, and she cannot get married. So of course, everything had to be put in place. The judge had to be informed. The marriage register of wills had to be informed, and all of those things had to be taken. So she could not, it would not have been legal, but she went through the process there, getting scammed by this boyfriend. He's still trying to catch her, by the way, but we have her safely tucked away in another place. Okay. Now, if a person is in the hospital and you need, we had a case right now, the gentleman is very confused. We don't know the background of this gentleman. Office of Aging Protective was involved, but they don't have much information. The family is estranged. So, and he needs, his foot is gangrenous. So one of his toes got gangrene and they had to operate, but they cannot get any permission to do any amputation. So what they did was they applied for an emergency, the hospital applied for an emergency guardianship, where the doctor testified. The hospital did a petition through their attorney to the court. The doctor testified the risk of life and imminent death, active death, if treatment is not given to this person. He could not even, by then, he has become so septic, there is no circulation in the foot. So we had to give permission, but the guardian, I had to be sure that if the man, we are not sure if the person was incapacitated before this foot got gangrenous, or the dementia was setting in for a while. So in that case, we want to make sure that if he regains capacity, he doesn't get angry why this was done, even though there is documentation, and sues the hospital and the guardian and the attorney for going through with this amputation. So getting 2 or 3 opinions from the doctors, the surgeon, the internist, the vascular, and documenting why this was necessary. They did cut off his foot at the ankle, but that's just part of the process. There has to be a further amputation higher up. So they are waiting with an open flap to make sure that there is no infection, and then cut below ankle amputation in order to save the foot. And he's diabetic. So these are tough decisions, and end of life are tough decisions. Again, getting as much of medical information as if there's family involved, getting them to cooperate, to work on it, and talking to different guardians at times if you need support. You have to make those end-of-life decisions, amputation decisions. Sometimes they will call you at 3 in the morning and saying that you have full code, that is, everything should be done for this person. He has severe dementia. Do I go ahead with CPR or no? So you have to think at that time, what about the person, what his background was, and then you talk to the doctors and you have to make on-the-moment decisions. It's not easy at that time, but you can think through those beforehand. For instance, as a guardian, I do put in full code, what that means. So everything should be done for the patient, because you never know which family member is going to come out of the woodwork and say, why was that not done? And then if the person is going into frequent hospitalizations, or there is such severe dementia, or there is pain and suffering, and then yes, then you can put in end of life, sign them up for hospice or palliative, and go forward with that. Any questions? Okay, after Deborah has a question, again, a good one. Is there average time? What is the average time it takes for the process of initial guardianship to finalize? When the petition is put forward, normally it takes about 3 months to get a court hearing date. It might be sooner if it's an emergency. After that, it takes about, I think they give you a month.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with the emergency ones, we have like 2 hearings, but for the permanent ones, it's usually just 1 hearing and then it's,
yes,
and then it's done. But those take longer.
Yes, so for the emergency one, normally are able to do it within 24 hours. And then after 24 hours, the order stands for 72 hours. And that 72 hours can be extended to 20 days, which the maximum is 30 days. So you have to have a hearing for a permanent guardianship within 30 days.
And does it depend on what county you're in?
Yes, no, most of them follow the same restrictions on the counties. The only difference is some of them do it by Zoom, some of them do in person. End of life depends on the county. Montgomery will not let you make an end of life decision as a guardian. You have to request an emergency hearing so that the family, the doctor testifying, all the concerned people are present before they give the decision. Good question. What if before they had a guardian, they had advance directives that can still apply? Yes. It doesn't apply till the guardian. It's a guideline for the guardian. So if you say he had already a end of life or advance directives were in place, then the guardian has no problem saying, I'm going to follow that because that's what they want. If the person is kind of with it still and still has a guardian, I have a couple of them, and they said, I do not want to be put on machines. Yes, then I have no problems putting DNR, do not resuscitate, do not hospitalize, do not incubate. All of those can be put into place if they can participate in their own, and the family and the doctor advises it. I'm going to say one last couple of things and I'm going to open up for questions. One second, what was I saying? I lost my chain of thought, forgive me. The difficulties of being a guardian and the pros and cons. The positives are you are helping someone, it's challenging. You learn so much as you're going along. I'm still learning. I love a challenging case. And it is, you see the person being helped, you see them from a life-threatening situation to a safe environment. But the disadvantages are the family usually. They can be a nightmare. I had one, and the attorney assured me, it was in Montgomery County, the attorney assured me that this was a very good family and they were very informed. They put me through the ringer. They had about 21 complaints against the nursing home in 1 month to the Department of Health. Nothing wrong. None of them was substantiated. It was all, the patient was severely dementia, had severe dementia. And she was in a dementia unit. But the family fought with themselves. They fought with me. They took me to court a couple of times. Finally, the judge said, when everything Medicaid, they had used up all the money for this patient, so we could not apply for Medicaid. We had to go through the attorneys for Medicaid, and everything was finally settled. I still haven't got rid of this case, but family finally took over the guardianship. So family can really be, I had one case where the daughters were fighting and they were using mom's money, and I got guardianship, total guardianship, plenary guardianship, and the daughters, in order to avoid listening to the judge or the order, absconded with mom to another state. And we had to trace her down, find which state, get the police involved, and the daughter went to jail, and the patient was placed. So it can be really extreme. I had another gentleman, and when we went, he wasn't going to the hospital, diabetic, totally confused. Not totally, some was there, which was the bad part. And he had a girlfriend who had moved in under some pretext. So when I took him to the hospital on an emergency basis, the doctor touched his toe and the toe came off in his hand. So it was that bad. So again, the patient has a brother who's an attorney and a sister who couldn't take care, but constant phone calls, constant wanting to know, what's happening, which is good, but not on every 2 or 3 days. It's a little too much. Um, so family can be helpful in some instances and sometimes really, really difficult. Also convincing the person that they need to be in a nursing home. Um, and it's a bad situation because they cannot be in an assisted, which costs more money and Medicaid doesn't pay for it, but they are not bad enough to be in a nursing home. So there are many of those people who are caught in between, but it's a safe environment to stay in um, the nursing home. So, and you are on call 24/7. So you have to get used to being woken up at 3 in the morning. There are some guardians who have an answering service, but some decisions have to be made at night. There is no two ifs and ands or buts about it. And one of my problems is the distance. Because I do all the counties, there is distancing between the people. But other than that, you get a lot of knowledge, you're helping people, and the money is not great, again, but it for the work you do and the hours you put in. But the buck stops at you, and everybody has a right to complain. It's the clients, the family, the nursing homes, the attorneys at times. So not you, uh, but it's a challenging position. Any questions or? Yes, they can become part of the newer community health choices, which is the waiver, I'm assuming, or senior life. There can be a shareable documentation platform. I don't use it because it just opens up for more problems. What I've written, and then they want to question, and then they want to, it's really, really complicated. So the way I do it is call me and I will explain to you. I had a phone call this morning. I'll give you an example. This lady was thoroughly abused, physically, I'm going to use the word thrashed by her son, where she couldn't breathe and she was taken to the hospital. The hospital and protective services applied for guardianship. I got this guardianship. She moved to a nursing home. Nobody helped this lady when she was at her home. But as soon as the guardianship went through, the son, who is a drug addict and was using mom's money, went to the bank. Before I could put a hold on it, wiped out that 1 month's rent, which was there. So the nursing home is short 1 month's rent. The brother calls me and is constantly upset with me because there are restrictions on the son visiting the mom. And now the nursing home has said the son is sneaking in and signing under different names or not signing at all. So there is a restriction that there have to be supervised visits and not in a room. The brother and some of the family members are upset for lack of privacy, but there is no go. This has to be done. Yes. After a guardian is selected and in place helping the person for a year or so, are there periodic background checks conducted on the guardian to maintain their integrity with the client? The reports are the yearly one, which tells you they also, the patient or the nursing home or anyone can call the attorneys and petition the court for a review hearing if things are not done. I had a patient ask for a review hearing because I wasn't doing my job. So when we went to court, and he's abusing me when he calls me because I'm not the person he thinks I am. So the judge asked him, what do you need? And he was not able to give an answer, but I was seeing him and I was able to answer that. So the judge is responsive to the incapacitated person's review requests, which are there. Some of the counties, like I think it's Chester, who has visitors, guardianship visitors, who will say, is it, they will do an investigation with the person, with the nursing home, with me, and see if I'm done. the ombudsman in a nursing home also is checking with the person as a review for the guardian. So then guardian is thoroughly evaluated, every penny is accounted for. Yes, there have been guardians in York County who went to jail, Montgomery County who went to jail for misuse of funds, employing own family members for the under patient's money to supply services, or overbilling for the hours, or making visits and not actually making visits and billing for it. So there are checks there. Oh, I'm sorry, Deb, I left your question about the waiver program. I'm sorry, I skipped. Is there part of they can go on the waiver and have a guardian in place, but I prefer not to take people who are at home because it's more work for me. So there are guardians who do that, but I personally don't accept cases where a person is not in a nursing home, is on, because then I have to, in my past, I did use that, but then I have to monitor who's coming in, who's going, keeping track of their needs, whether they're on the phone or not. And I don't have the time to go that much into detail for that client.
Gotcha. I was just curious because most of the community health choices waivers are tied to UPMC or is it AmeriHealth? And I think there's a third, insurance, and they have service coordinators who help with some of that monitoring. They can do in-home visits also. So I wasn't sure if that helped or hindered you or anything's changed.
It's really thoughtful because I do home care for an agency in Reading, and I do home visits for that. So I have I put people on waiver, but not through the guardianship, but independently as their medical social worker. But they have zillions of questions. There's usually a family member there. They have zillions of questions. Then I contact the coordinator, like medical equipment. So the coordinator calls maybe once in 3 months. Some of them are more active, but usually on a day-to-day basis, they are not there. And also the waiver program pays very little to their providers. So they have difficulty keeping home health agency aides. So I think roughly, and I could be wrong, they get paid like 12 or 13 an hour or 14, but they get higher. So the aides, there is a fast turnover of the aides. So they will not show up, or that agency is no longer providing services. So they have to switch agencies. So there's a lot of ingoing with the clients.
Gotcha. Yeah, very complicated. Does anyone else have any questions or thoughts, concerns, or, in their own situations? If you wouldn't mind mentioning your phone number again, if folks want to learn about becoming a guardian or want to talk to you about someone, can you tell them again?
Anytime. You can call me anytime. And I see Vinona. Hello, Vinona. I know you're there.
No, she laughed. Yeah, I saw her too, but she laughed. Yeah.
She
was probably in the
worked with Office of Aging. She's a social worker. I worked her with in the hospital. Right. My number is 610-468, even numbers, and then 2100 drinking age, which I'm tempted to do most of the time between my family and work. So 610-468-2100. And you can text me, you can call me anytime. If I'm busy, I'll call you back.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. If any last minute questions come in, I'll certainly we'll address them, but I really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. I think hopefully it's helped me understand a little bit better about guardianship, and takes about 3 months for court date, and all of them are going to be complicated. I can't imagine. There might be a handful of simple ones that you've had.
And again, some of them, you just have to treat it like an onion. peel one problem at a time. I had this family, you could smell the house, the sweetest couple. You could smell their house 2 blocks down. They had 50 cats, and out of which 10 were dead in the house. She didn't want to bury them. So the live cats were eating the dead cats. So and they were the sweetest couple. So we had to get them out, get the cats out, one step at a time, hazmat suits. So, and they are fine. They were fine. The house was fine. So it seems complicated. And all that I mentioned, it's not the guardian doing that. It's a variety of people. So the petitioner is the hospital or a family member or the attorneys and the doctors. So the guardian's role starts only when they're appointed, and they have support from the attorneys which are there. They have support from family members many a times, and community people. There's private duty, like Mr. Hawkins is there. Absolutely, help is available. You just need to reach out and yell help, which there are people out there. So it's not very complicated, but it is time consuming.
Gotcha. Okay. And then just for the audience's sake, who Ms. Doshi was referring to off and on was one of our advisory members who's an attorney, Maureen. So that's who she was talking to. There she is.
Hi.
So she has worked with Cal on some situations, and it was just good to have her be able to go to her and feedback a little bit. And she's very helpful to our coalition also.
Yeah, she's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. And you can text me if there are any questions or any personal questions. Feel free to text me. The number is there. You can give me a call if you don't want it in writing. Anything, people call me from all over the states, family members or anything. I'm absolutely available anytime. No
Excellent. Thank you so much for attending. So there was a little poll that went up. Feel free, obviously, to fill that out. Yes. And next month, October 5th, we have, could you remind me of the title, Maureen? I'm so sorry.
It's the second, isn't it? The second Thursday?
Yes. Second Thursday. So sorry. No, it should be the first Thursday.
Oh, okay. You're
sorry about that, but
you're
okay. But anyway, if you could remind me of the title.
I believe it's What I Wish I Knew, and the topic's going to be various estate administration and estate planning.
Yes. What I wish I knew before it happened. Most of the time, that's what we're trying to prevent with palliative care, with end of life, with Circle of Life Coalition education. Hopefully you're more informed when the crisis hits or the need hits. So that will be October, and there will be a flyer. Please share with your friends. Like us on Facebook, on formerly Twitter, Instagram, and follow along with our blog. We really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.